Hello everyone, welcome to today's video lecture, and we continue covering histology lab. In this video, we will talk about connective tissue. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, what is tissue? I want to remind you that tissue is a group of similar cells that perform common function. Now, we already covered epithelial tissue in my previous video. Epithelial tissue has several characteristics that very specific for that type of epithelium. One of them is it's a very cellular tissue. That means you have lots of cells, and epithelial cells, they connected to one another. Now, connective tissue is different. Connective tissue has fewer cells, and they're not connected to each other. And there is a lot of extracellular material between the cells. So this is our first connective tissue called connective tissue proper areolar tissue, areolar connective tissue. Now, if you look, let's go ahead and start with photomicrograph first. You see this dark parts over here, those are actually nuclei of the cells that are called fibroblasts. So here's your name, fibroblast nuclei. Now, I already told you that when you have a human cell, human cells are eukaryotic cells, they have nucleus inside, but those cells are mostly transparent. They do not have any color. So to make those cells visible on a histology slide, we use different coloring technique. We dye the cells. So, and nucleus is the organelle that's gonna pick up lots of color. That's why very often you cannot see cell membrane, you cannot see cytoplasm, but you see nucleus really well. So that's why you see nuclei, but of course there is a cell surrounding this nucleus. Now, some cells are different here, like this is a bigger cells, because areolar connective tissue has not only fibroblast, but also mast cells, other white blood cells, macrophages. That's why cells will look different. The bigger cells are usually white blood cells. Now, the name fibroblast means that this is metabolically active cell. Blast means cell synthesize a lot of stuff, and what it synthesizes, like look to the front. So this cell synthesize fibers. Now, what are fibers? Fibers are structural proteins. So for example, proteins that look like lines like this, or the branching proteins, or maybe a thick proteins. So those are all structural proteins, and we call them fibers because they're thin and long, right? Right, so we see the nuclei of the cell, and all this line, like this one over here, or these lines, those are extracellular proteins or extracellular fibers. Actually, connective tissue is made of cells. Of course, tissue cannot be made of anything else. Tissue is a group of cells. So we have cells plus what we call extracellular matrix. Extracellular matrix. And extracellular matrix is made of ground substance and fibers. Ground substance and fibers. And fibers are our proteins. Now, ground substance are also organic molecules plus water, molecules like glycoproteins, proteoglycans. And we have three types of fibers in the connective tissue: elastic, collagen, and reticular. Now, ground substance and fibers make extra I don't know, I think this is A over here, extracellular matrix. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the description. Areolar connective tissue is gel-like matrix with all three types of fibers, means elastic, collagen, and reticular cells, such as fibroblasts, that's a major cell, macrophages, mast cells, and some white blood cells. Function, it wraps and cushioning organs. Macrophages phagocytize bacteria, that means they pretty much engulf them, swallow them, take them in, and destroy them. Plays important role in inflammation, holds and conveys tissue fluids. Location, widely distributed under epithelia of body. Now you have your skin, right? Your skin is made of two tissue types, epithelial and connective. So the most superficial part of your skin is epithelial tissue, but underlying you have areolar connective tissue. It also forms lamina propria in mucous membrane. The picture shown here on the bottom, you have epithelium, and then you have lamina propria. So that's our areolar connective tissue. And this is how your mucous membrane is made. And your mucous membrane cover your open body cavities, like your digestive tract, your urogenital tract. Areolar tissue also packages organs and surrounds capillaries. Now, when you look at the photomicrograph, I already show you the cells. Fibroblasts, the bigger cells will be your mast cells or white blood cells. Now, you can only see two types of fibers here. The thin and darker fibers are elastic fibers, and the thicker pinkish fibers are collagen fibers. Now, there is another type of fibers in this tissue that is reticular, but reticular fibers really made of collagen as well. That's why they kind of blend in. That's why the only tissue you can see here, only fibers you can see here, collagen and elastic, plus cells. And now this pinkish stuff over here, right? All this stuff, that's our ground substance. Right, so you can see that cells are not close to each other. They spread apart. And there's a lot of extracellular stuff between the cells, such as your ground substance, your fibers. Now, everything between the cells are made by cells. So it's made by your fibroblast. So you're made of cells, and everything in your body is made by cells as well. Right, so let's clear. Next tissue is also connective tissue proper. It's an adipose tissue. You might hear another name for this tissue, fat. Yes, so adipose is your fat tissue. Description, matrix as in areolar, but very sparse. That means you have way less matrix. Closely packed adipocytes of fat cells have nucleus pushed to the side by large fat droplets. Now, remember I told you connective tissue, one of the characteristics of connective tissue is that cells are further away from each other. They not connected. However, adipose tissue is exception of a rule. But you can imagine you would have like small adipocyte cells, right? So here's one, here's maybe another one, right? So that will be my cell, adipocyte. And it would have a lot of matrix between them, similar to areolar. So you would have your elastic fibers, you would have your collagen fibers over here. But now what happened when your cells accumulate lots of fat, so they became bigger, you will have this vacuole full of fat, you would push nucleus to the side, right? So here's my cell number 1 and here's my cell number 2. So now because of lots of fat storage inside the cells, now you see that cells are closely packed. So they became close to each other, but they're not connected. In epithelial cell, you really have junctions. You have junction between cells. They are connected. Adipocytes are not connected. There is still matrix between them, but now we have less matrix because cells just grew large. Now, what is the function? Provides reserve food fuel. You store a lot of fat, triglycerides inside. Insulates against heat loss, supports and protects organs. And location would be under skin. So your skin has like all of this tissue pretty much that we just covered. Stratified squamous epithelium, keratinized. That's your upper layer, epidermis. Then you have areolar connective tissue right underneath the epithelial tissue of your skin. Under that one, you have dense regular that we didn't cover yet, but underneath your skin, you have layer of adipose tissue, or we call it subcutaneous fat. It also, or hypodermis. Hypodermis is the name for this adipose tissue underneath your skin. It's also around your kidneys, eyeballs, within abdomen, in breast. And for a micrograph, show you pretty much, so here's the cell, right, like this. Here's the nucleus that pushed to the side because you have this huge vacuole containing fat droplets. And you do see some matrix in between, and this matrix will be similar to areolar tissue matrix. Next, connective tissue proper. And it's dense regular. By the way, it's all of this is connective tissue proper. Connective tissue proper, connective tissue proper, connective tissue proper, or fibrous connective tissue. I do have another video. I cover chapter in our textbook, and I explained this classification of tissue. So you do need to watch that video as well to understand what this connective tissue proper means and why some is proper and some, for example, is fluid and another is supporting. Right, but that's for another video that I already recorded. Now, dense regular connective tissue. Let's see what we have over here. First, we see these dark spots again. Those are nuclei. Nuclei are the same cells, fibroblast. So here's our cells. They're not connected. They're far away from each other. And now you have collagen fibers. So all this pinkish stuff is extracellular stuff. This is important to remember. Those fibers, those proteins are not inside our cells. It's outside. They make extracellular matrix. And you can see collagen fibers, they arranged parallel to each other in the same direction. That's why we call it regular. Regular referring to fibers that oriented parallel to each other, and dense referring to those fibers up close to each other. So we have lots of density, we have lots of those fibers in extracellular matrix. So description, primarily parallel collagen fibers, few elastic fibers. Major cell type is the fibroblast. Function, attaches muscles to bones or to muscles, attaches bones to bones. This strengthens great tensile stress when pulling force is applied to one direction. Because you have lots of collagen fibers and they're pretty strong material, then you can withhold a tensile stress, but only when you pull along the fiber. So if you pull this way or that way, this tissue is good as withholding the force. But if you start pulling in this direction or that direction, then you will separate those fibers. Right. So that's why the location is where you pretty much need to withstand this tensile stress in one direction. So it's tendons. Tendons connects muscles to bones. Ligaments connects bones to bones, and aponeurosis, similar to tendons, but tendons are like rope-like, and aponeurosis are sheet-like structures. But aponeurosis also connects muscle to bone or muscle to muscle. All right, so here show you the ligament and tendon that are made of dense regular connective tissue. Cartilage. Cartilage is connective tissue as well. We have three types of cartilage: hyaline, elastic, and fiber cartilage. And hyaline, the most common cartilage in your body. Hyaline means glass look. It's glassy. It has this glassy appearance. So let's read description first. It's amorphous but firm matrix. And again, I want to remind you, matrix is everything between the cells. Collagen fibers form imperceptible network. Chondroblasts produce the matrix, and when mature, became chondrocytes, and they lie in lacunae. And lacuna is a little pocket of fluid. Now let's look at the histology slide. You can see we have cells. So here's a cell, and here's another cell, and you can even see the nucleus of a cell here and over there. Here's another cell. Those cells are called chondrocytes. Now, when they are young cells and they're very metabolically active, and when they secrete all this matrix between them, we call them chondroblasts. So here's our chondroblast. So chondroblasts secrete the matrix. When they became surrounded by the matrix, they turn into chondrocytes. Now, because this matrix is pretty firm, right? It's amorphous. Amorphous means you don't see individual collagen fibers. So you do have collagen here, but you don't see individual fibers. So that's amorphous, but it's very firm. So when matrix is firm, for cells to survive, they need a fluid surrounding them. So here will be a fluid inside lacuna, and lacuna means little lake. So each chondrocyte are inside this lacunae. So look like, for me, look like eyes, it's like somebody's eyes. So you have this white, and then you have your iris and the pupil. But whatever it reminds you, whatever will help you to remember that this is our hyaline cartilage. So function is support. So it supports and reinforces, has resilient cushioning properties, and resist compressive stress. Location forms most of the embryonic skeleton. Embryonic is during your development in your mother's uterus. Covers the ends of long bones in the joint cavities. Forms costal cartilages of the ribs, cartilages of the nose, trachea, and larynx. Larynx is your voice box. So over here you can see rib cage, and ribs are attached to the sternum through hyaline cartilage. Also, for example, if you have your long bone, like femur, right, this ends of long bone will be covered by hyaline cartilage as well. So your nose is made of nasal bones, but more anterior part of your nose is made of hyaline cartilage, and then you have, connective tissue. But that's your nose. Also, if you look inside your nose, you have a septum. Part of the septum is hyaline cartilage as well. Right, so that's our connective tissue. And because you can see cells are still far away from each other, there is a lot of extracellular matrix between them, and the function is support, right? So support, cushioning, resistance of stress. And the major function of connective tissue is to bind and support. Okay, so let's look at the next tissue type. And this is bone. Now, cartilage and bone, they connective tissue, but they are a special group of connective tissue called supporting connective tissue. Okay, so let's look at this slide. First, you probably again see those dark lines over here. Those are nuclei of bone cells, and this is called osteocytes. So here's the name, osteocytes. So osteocytes inside the lacunae. So you really would have kind of like a cell, osteocytes surrounding by lacunae. So here another one surrounding by lacunae. But in this slide, you only labeled lacunae because magnification is not very large. So you don't see cells inside. So you need way better magnification to see osteocyte inside the lacunae. And then we have like this circular structure in the middle called central canal. And cells, they kind of located around the central canal. You see how they located around the central canal and form this whole, circular structure called osteon. So this part, this circle is called osteon. Here's another osteon. Osteons are structural units of bone, of the compact bone. Inside you have central canal. In central canal you have blood vessels and nerves. You have cells, osteocytes, that surround the central canal. And because you have blood vessels inside the central canal, you need to deliver oxygen and nutrients to those cells. You have this little like hair-looking structures. This is called canaliculi. And layers of matrix. Let me see if I can draw it. I don't know this. How this? Oh yeah. So the layers of matrix, like this one over here, one layer. Here's, let me pick up another color. Here's another layer. This is called lamellae. Lamella is one, lamellae is plural. Okay, so description. It's hard, calcified matrix. And matrix is everything excluding the cells. So you have your cells, and then everything between cells is your matrix. So it's hard, calcified matrix containing many collagen fibers. Osteocytes, that our cells lie in lacunae. This tissue is very well vascularized. Now, where are those blood vessels? The blood vessels are inside central canal. So here you have your arteries and veins and nerves as well. as well. Function: bone supports and protects by enclosing, protects your internal organs, provides levers for the muscles to act on. So your muscles move your bones. That's how you move your body. Stores calcium and other materials and fat. Marrow inside the bone. So inside the bone, you will have a cavity. Not so much in a long bone, but when you're young, you do. And inside this cavity, it's called bone marrow cavity. You have bone marrow, and this is the bone marrow is the site for blood cell formation. This process is called hematopoiesis, and location your bones. Right, so that's our connective tissue, supporting connective tissue, compact bone. Blood. Well, yeah, interesting, but blood is tissue, and it's connective tissue, and it's fluid connective tissue. Now, if you look at blood, most of the cells you see are red blood cells or erythrocytes. You have bigger cells that are white blood cells. Now, white blood cells have different names like neutrophil, lymphocytes. You have these little pieces of cells called platelets, and extracellular matrix between are actually plasma. So here's extracellular matrix, that's plasma. So description: red and white blood cells in a fluid matrix that we call plasma. Function: transport of respiratory gases, nutrients, waste, and other substances, and location: contained within blood vessels. So that's another type of connective tissue. So I'm gonna, I think this is my last connective tissue over here. Let me double check. Yes, because we have nervous. So I just want to make like a very quick summary of what we covered in this lecture. We cover areolar connective tissue. We colored adipose connective tissue and dense regular. Now these three, areolar, adipose, and dense regular, are called connective tissue proper. Then we covered one type of cartilage, hyaline cartilage, and compact bone, and cartilage and bone are supporting connective tissue. And we cover blood, that is fluid connective tissue. Right, and two more slides we have is a nervous tissue slide, and then we'll have skeletal muscles. Now, nervous tissue is very diverse. So here you pretty much just see the neurons. It doesn't mean that all your nervous tissue will look like that, but that will be our example. So let's read the description. Neurons are branching cells. So that's a neuron over here. So here's a neuron, and it has like this processes. Oh, this one is a good one. You know why. So here's the cell, and it has several processes, so it's branching. Cell processes that may be quite long extend from the nucleus containing cell body. So that's a cell body, here's a nucleus inside. Also contributing to nervous tissue are non-irritable supporting cells that are not illustrated. Yeah, they are illustrated. Here's our supporting cells. I don't know why it says it's not illustrated, but here are the cells between your large neurons that are supporting cells. So nervous tissue characterized by the presence of large cells that we call neurons, lots of processes. Now, those processes are not the same as your connective tissue. In the connective tissue, let me kind of go back and show you connective tissue. So let me So look at this slide. You have kind of big cells and you have lots of what look like lines for you in between them. And look over here, you have cells and lots of lines in between them. Now in a connective tissue, those lines are extracellular stuff. Those are proteins that are not inside our cells. In a nervous tissue, those lines are part of neuron. That makes sense. That's a big difference. Because if I would draw a neuron over here, right? So here how I would draw the neuron. So I have those processes and this, you know, like numerous dendrites over here. But all these processes, the point is they are part of the cells. There is cytoplasm inside. And here's maybe another neuron, right? So maybe here's its axon, there's a nucleus, and here's our dendrites. And, you know, there is a lot of connection here. And it looked like we have lots of extracellular matrix, but it's not actually the truth because we have lots of cells and their processes, because those processes are part of a cell. But we do have, I don't know why I cannot pick up. Interesting. Why I cannot pick up the different color? Oh, here we go. So we will have some supporting cells in between our large neurons. You can see also diagram of neuron. So here's our cell body. So here's what I'm talking about, cell bodies, and we have smaller and numerous processes called dendrites, and they highly branched, and we have longer axon and dendrites and axons called neuron processes. So function, transmit electrical signals from sensory receptors and to effectors, muscles and glands, which control their activity. So the function is those cells transmit sensory signals from your body to your brain or to your spinal cord and transmit electrical signals from your brain to your muscles and to your glands. And by doing it, your neurons, your nervous system control your body functions. So location, brain, spinal cord, and nerves. And the last slide here is muscle tissue. Now we have three types of muscles, cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Cardiac muscles found in your heart, smooth muscles in your internal organs, in the walls of your internal organs, and skeletal muscles attached to your bones, and they move your bones. So we're only gonna look at skeletal. We're only gonna look at skeletal muscle. So description, long cylindrical multinucleated cell. So here's your cell. So here's your entire cell. Well, it's even actually a piece of cell. Each cell is so long that we call it muscle fiber. So muscle fiber equals muscle cell. And because it's very long cell, it has multiple nuclei. That's what it's all that's why it's called multinucleated cells. And you can see striation. And striation are those lines that goes up and down of a cell. So here you have nuclei, you have striation. Here's a part of muscle fiber or muscle cell. Function, voluntary movement, locomotion, manipulation of the environment, facial expression, and they are under voluntary control. That means you can consciously control your skeletal muscles. Location, in skeletal muscles attached to bones or occasionally to skin. So skeletal muscle tissue makes your skeletal muscles. Your skeletal muscles move your bones or moves skin of your face for your facial expression. So that's the last slide. And now we have little quiz over here. So see how we're doing. Now, which one is stratified squamous? So you can see two similar tissues, tissue 1 and tissue 2. And the stratified squamous stratified squamous? You can pause it and try to answer the question, and then I will tell you the answer. So stratified squamous is picture number 1. So what we have here, we have our basement membrane right there. Look, I don't know what happened, but my pen, it became so thin. I don't even know. Let me, oh yeah, here I can change it. So here's the basement membrane. Let me try again. Let's see. Oh. Okay, so here's my basement membrane, right? And I have many layers of cells from here up to the top. What I can see lots of nuclei here, but I know each nucleus is surrounded by cell membrane and the cytoplasm. And I really see the flat cells over here on the top. You see how close they are. So those are squamous cells on the top, and we have many layers. So that's a stratified squamous. Now, which one is this one? Here's my basement membrane. And cells do look tall, right? They look like columnar cells, and they have cilia. And it seems like we have many layers, but remember, when it look like many layers and cells are columnar, those gonna be pseudo-stratified columnar. So this one is pseudo-stratified columnar ciliated. Next slide, asking you over here, which one is dense regular? So pause this video and try to answer. And the dense regular is this one. So those little dark spots are cells, fibroblast, and then we have collagen fibers that parallel to each other. Which one is this? This is skeletal muscle. So here's a cell. You see striation. And you can see each cell, like over here, has multiple nuclei. So those cells are tube shape. Now, all this pink stuff here is inside the cell. On picture 1, all this pink stuff is outside the cell. So we have dense regular and skeletal muscle over here. Next little quiz. Which one is hyaline cartilage? So what do you think? Well, what is the similarities? This look like a little eyes, right? And this look like little eyes, but this one is stratified squamous. Here's our basement membrane. Here's our columnar cells on the base in the basal part. And here's our squamous cells close to each other. You see cell membrane here even. That's a stratified squamous. Over here, we see chondrocytes inside the lacunae, chondrocytes inside lacunae, and lots of matrix over here in between them. That's hyaline cartilage, and picture number 1 is stratified squamous. Which one is areolar connective tissue? Well, how we can figure it out? So in both example, we see some what look like dots for us. Over here we have lots of dots, but look, those are our neurons. So large cells with lots of processes and small supporting cells in between, or cells that are pretty much the same size, some are a little bit bigger, and lots of fibers in between. So this is our areolar, and this is our nervous tissue. I wonder if this is my last slide or not. Let me discard. Yeah, this was my last slide. So we covered connective tissue. We also covered one type of nervous tissue and one type of muscle, skeletal muscle. And then we compared stratified squamous pseudostratified columnar. We compared dense regular and skeletal muscle, stratified squamous and hyaline cartilage, and nervous tissue and areolar tissue. Okay, thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.